3, 2, 1.
Good day everyone, GarageKing here. Today we have a 2012 Honda CRV. That's a 4th gen, but you know what? They're all pretty much the same, all vehicles, and this one has a loose outer tie rod in. And take a look at that picture. That's right, you can actually lose your wheel. And the reason you lose your wheel is the socket wears, and when you hit a bump or you hit a curbs, anything like that, it can actually pop out. So we're going to change this on this vehicle, and once again, there you go. You can see all of that play in there. We definitely don't want that play. So what we're gonna do first is we're gonna get our new part, we're gonna compare it, and we're gonna make sure it looks the same. Second, we're going to get 2 wrenches. I have here a 17mm and a 15/16, and I'm just gonna loosen it. There you go, it's loose in there. I've loosened the jam nut, but the jam nut is still on the inner tie rod. You can see me turning it. The jam nut actually hasn't turned. What has turned is the outer tie rod. So the outer tie rod is now loose, but the jam nut is still in the exact same position. So what we're going to do now is we are going to remove the cotter key from the nut that holds the outer tie rod to the spindle. Now, sometimes you can get the cotter key out and sometimes you can't. And there, yeah, if you've heard that clicky noise, that was the cotter key. It actually just broke. So not a big deal. All we're going to do is we're going to take our side cutters or wire cutters, whatever you want to call them, and we are going to trim the pin right down so we can get a socket and just spin it and take the nut off that way. Now, for those of you that are thinking this is probably going to damage the threads, it actually doesn't damage the threads, but even if it did, it wouldn't matter because we're replacing this piece anyway. Now, this next part is important. What we want to do is we want to snug up the outer tie rod against the jam nut so that it's vertical, the way it would mount in the suspension. That's important so we can line up the new one. Then what you're gonna do is you're just gonna spin it off and count the number of turns. In my case here, it was 13 turns. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take your new part, you're going to thread it in reverse a little bit just so the threads catch. And it's important also not to turn the jam nut at this time. You don't want to turn the inner tie rod end, because if you turn the inner tie rod end, you're actually moving the threads around. And in my case, I spun it back on and it was 13 turns, so it was exactly the same. So you can see there we have it mounted. And then best practices afterward is obviously to take it for a wheel alignment, although I must confess many times I don't, just because I get them on so straight that I find that even after driving them around for a while, they still don't show any wear on the front tires, or any irregular wear, I should say. Now, torque specs. If you can see here, or take a look here in the video, you can see I'm tightening it up, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to look and see if the cotter pin fits freely through. And if it doesn't, if it's a little bit snug like it is there, I'm just going to tighten it up a little bit more. You don't want to loosen it. Now, if you've paid close attention in this video, you'll see the nut, the aftermarket nut, is different than the factory nut, which means that the torque specs may in fact be different. Now, the first generation Honda service manual states that as long as you have a metric 10 by 1.25 thread, you should be between 29 and 35 foot-pounds. So I'll leave it up to you to decide, but if you're really not comfortable, then please take it to a shop. Then what you're gonna do is we're just gonna snug it up here. Now there should be very, very little movement here at all. And as you can see, there really wasn't much movement because the outer tie rod was already shouldered up against the jam nut. And here I'll compare the two. You can see this one is super duper loose. Let's take it on the bench and have a better look at it. There you can see, take a look at that. Now, all it would have taken was maybe one big bump and that could have popped out and caused a serious accident. So I'm glad I caught it. And as always, if you don't feel comfortable doing the repair on your own, please take it to a shop. Suspension is nothing to toy with unless you feel comfortable, because you definitely don't want to get hurt or cause an accident and seriously injure yourself on the road. That being said, the time, I think, you know what? Today it went a little bit too fast for us, but it was a nice short video. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. That's it for this week. GarageKing over and out.